The court, please have the order. There's a quorum present. All of the notices have been posted, and all the members are present. Your motion to open court.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, bailiff will please open court.
All right. Dallas County Commissioners Court is now in session for February 2013 term with the Honorable Judge Jenkins presiding. Please remain standing for the invocation.
And our invocation today will be given by a guest of Commissioner Daniel.
This is Pastor Dr. Gregory J. Foster. Pastor Gregory J. Foster received his call into the ministry November 1979. At that time, he began serving under his father, the late Dr. J. Lee Foster, who organized the First Baptist Church of Hamilton Park, along with his mother, Annie Pearl, and 7 other members. He served as the senior assistant pastor under his father until January 8, 1994, when he was called to serve as senior pastor of the First Independent Baptist Church, Corsicana, Texas. He became the 22nd pastor of this historical African American church. First Independent was organized in 1868 by former slaves to worship God independently. The term independent was used to differentiate from an already existing Baptist movement and to show that it was organized by African Americans. Pastor Greg, as he is known by many members, served until 1995 when he returned to First Baptist Hamilton Park to undergird his father's ministry due to his deteriorating health. Since his father's death in February 2003, Pastor Greg now serves as the senior pastor under the father-son tradition, which is woven into the fabric of the church. So, as he honors us with prayer, please welcome Pastor Greg.
Thank you very much, Dr. Daniels and the court for the invitation. This is the first time I've been here, and I thank God for the privilege. Will you bow your head as I pray, please? God of all creation, we ask your blessing on our task today as we represent fairly those who have given us the honor of leadership. May we serve with respect for all. May our decisions be blessed with insight, guided by understanding and wisdom. May we always remember those who we represent with honesty and integrity. And God, may your light enfold us. May your spirit guide us. May your grace abound in us. This is my prayer. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Daniels, if you will. And, Dr. Foster, we're just glad to see you. I'm sorry it's taking so long. You're in another district, so we try not to reach over there and bother you. But just glad you made it. Foster, preacher's kid. I'm a preacher's kid. I know that's hard to do. But Pastor Foster, Greg and I have some in common, both April 24th, so we celebrated for the last decade or so. Our birthdays on the same day, so good to see you. Thank you, Dr. Daniels.
Thank you for your welcome into your church, and thank you for the welcome this morning.
On that note, Commissioner Price and I went to a funeral a couple of weeks ago. We did a joint resolution together, but they wanted us both to speak. So I said, well, do you want me to say a few words and read the resolution? He said, no, I'll do that. And I saw a whole new side of Commissioner Price. He got up there and preached a sermon. I'm telling you what, he could preach. I told him at the end of it, I said, now when I die, I want you there are times when he wants to help me along. I'm sorry, the first resolution actually is from Commissioner Trent.
Judge and Commissioners, I do have a special recognition today. If I can call Jack Hedge in Alberta. We had to surprise Jack because he wouldn't come unless we surprised him. So also I think your wife and son here. Anybody else?
You got a whole delegation.
Bring up the whole delegation.
Yeah, they got a delegation back there.
All right. So Commissioner, it really was a surprise.
It was.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Because we talked about the Lloyd Bridge and Boston Road, didn't we? He's got So I'll read the resolution and move its adoption. Whereas the Dallas County Commissioners Court takes special notice of an employee with the county has dedicated their life and career to public and military service. And whereas Dallas County honors and celebrates Jack D. Hedge for his 85th birthday on February 17th in tandem with his 22 years of invaluable service with the Public Works Department. His experience and knowledge have made him an irreplaceable asset among the engineers he leads and inspires as the Assistant Director of the Program Engineering and Management Division. And whereas in 1949, Jack graduated with honors from Texas A&M University with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering, and later that year was hired as engineering training with TxDOT. During that time, Jack began his 32-year military career by joining the U.S. Army Reserve and served as platoon leader in the Infantry Division. A few years later, he entered extended active duty with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers until 1953, which would include serving as a company commander on the Korean Combat Zone. Upon his return, he was hired as senior resident engineer with TxDOT in Silsbee, Texas, and he would later bring his leadership abilities in 1966 to work for the First National Bank of Silsbee as senior vice president, a city of which he was very active civically as president and director of the local Chamber of Commerce, the Kiwanis Club, and even the public library. 6 years later, Jack became the president, CEO, and director of the Lake City State Bank in Lake Dallas, Texas, while concurrently working as commandant of the Dallas U.S. Army Reserve School as Colonel of Engineers until his retirement on Halloween of 1979 after 32 years of service. And whereas in 1988, Jack co-owned and ran full-time operations of a full-lines property, casualty, life, health, and specialty insurance agency. 2 years later, he was hired on with Dallas County Public Works as a civil engineering designer. While putting his expertise and skills to work, Jack quickly defined his leadership role with the department, earning various promotions and the essential role of manager of the civil design section. As the design leader, Jack spearheaded the design of Mountain White Rock Pedestrian Bridge, which is beautiful, Beltline Road Roundabout, which is unbelievable, Boston Road, which we never thought it would happen, and many more innovative projects. In May 2011, Jack was promoted to Assistant Director of the Program Engineering and Management Division, where he continues to act as a key mentor in engineering and financial areas, showing style and professionalism in his endeavors. And whereas Jack has been married to Mrs. Joe Hedge for 60 years, and they have 2 adult children, Jack C. Hedge and Jeff P. Hedge, along with his grandpa duties to 2 grandchildren. He also spends his leisure time at the golf course, in the garden, and playing the violin. Now therefore be it resolved that the Dallas County Commissioners Court does hereby recognize and extend sincere appreciation and respect to Jack D. Hedge for his leadership, commitment, and dedication to his country and to Dallas County, and further expresses continued success in the years to come. And I so move.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Jack won't be speaking to me. You neither.
Commissioners, Judge, I just want to say, I'm almost caught in tears too. But Jack has been a true mentor. I mean, Jack is so diligent in doing his work that one day he came to work and he says, "I don't feel good, I'm going to the doctor." And he ended up having bypass surgery that day, and he came back to work 2 weeks later. I mean, Jack is just amazing. And with that, I got two people real quick that want to say something. These are two people that he mentored on two sides of the fence.
Morning, Commissioners, Judge. Jack, for myself, actually with the vision of being program and engineer in the financial division, is one of the things that I can speak most about Jack that has inspired me is his integrity, as far as making sure that the integrity of our processes stays intact. That's one of the biggest things that Jack has inspired me, and I truly appreciate that for him. Thank you.
Commissioners and Judge, thanks for this opportunity. Jack hired me back in 2004 in the position that he actually came in at many years ago as the senior civil engineering designer. And here we are 9 years later, and I'm actually seated in the seat that Jack occupied at the time I came to board. But I like to refer to Jack as our resident historian. I actually said that to him last month. He may not remember that. But what I found in the time that I've worked with him is that he's the guy that you can always go to really ask about anything, whether it's design related or whether it's Texas history or anything about anything. Jack is the one to go to. And I don't profess to have half of the knowledge that Jack has. And even 30 years from now, I can't say that I will have that same knowledge. So Jack, I want to thank you for all of your contributions to public works and to me as well. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Lyman, I didn't take this opportunity to say thank you. Sincerely, I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure with you associated with Dallas County.
Well, Jack, if you will, Commissioner, not many people know what Silsby is. Those of us born in St. Augustine, Texas, we know what Silsby is.
But I got a job there right out of school. I had to look it up on the map.
Down in Nacogdoches country. But anyway, I appreciate it. You know, I see you and your wife. I've been singing for 60 years, but I see you every morning, every evening. And I appreciate your work ethic. I mean, you're always here. But I think I heard it said it best. I appreciate the value you bring to this department and the way you mentor young engineers in this department. I just want to say that. Thank you very much on behalf of the citizens of Dallas County. All the work to us.
You're such a role model, not only in your work, but also 60 years of marriage. That's quite an accomplishment. In today's time, so congratulations and thank you.
I hope I look half as good as you.
Yeah, Ms. Taylor. She's the resident chef. I see that.
If I may, let me introduce my wife, Joe. She's related to the lady who owns the island pharmacy. I consider myself quite lucky and good.
It's a team effort.
Congratulations.
Next resolution will be given by Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Judge, colleagues, members of the audience. It's one of the pleasures of being public service is that you have the opportunity to work with young people. And when some of your fellow elected officials ask you to recognize someone that has worked. You know, the work group in Dallas County, but they really have gone way beyond the call of duty. I'm very honored to do that. So this recognition is for Mr. Todd Sellers, and I was asked to give it to him by Honorable Roy Williams, which is here with us today, and I'm going to ask him to come forward. And the resolution reads as follows. Whereas Mr. Todd Sellers began working in the Civil Division of the Dallas County District Attorney's Office on January 12, 2004. And whereas on multiple occasions throughout this past year and many years prior, he has responded with timely, well-considered advice and opinion on legal matters for Dallas County Police or Constable Williams' office. And whereas the good advice that he has given to the Constable's office has helped avoid possible misinterpretations of court orders, writs, and warrants received by Constable Williams' office, and has likely saved that office and Dallas County from exposure to lawsuits and litigation. Whereas his experience with the civil process has enabled him to be able to understand the time-critical demands of executing court orders and to draw upon the experience to quickly respond to the critical points that demand the Constable's office attention and response. And whereas example of matters he has assisted during this past year were outbound service on an eviction citation, an order requesting out-of-county services on an mental illness warrant, substituted service on a defunct corporation, and execution of a reuse writ upon a party in adverse possession. And whereas he has been an astounding legal resource for the Constable's office when they have been faced with legal questions generated by court orders beyond the law. Now therefore be resolved that Dallas County Commissioners Court officially recognizes and thanks Mr. Todd Sellers for his legal expertise and willingness to help our Dallas County law enforcement officers as they serve the citizens of Dallas County. And I so move.
Also, I can say, motion carries unanimously.
Honorable Williams.
Good morning, Court. I've been a Dallas County employee for 23 years, the last 2 as your elected constable out of Precinct 4. And one of the things that I take great pleasure in, as Commissioner Garcia said, is just being able to say thank you. To be able to recognize someone that goes above and beyond. And this is just one of those opportunities. Mr. Sellers has been a phenomenal resource, a phenomenal asset to Dallas County. I want to assure Dallas County voters and citizens that you're definitely in good hands. He has done a phenomenal job with my office. There's one story I want to tell, and he'll be able to tell if it's true or not. Again, my office has him on speed dial. And supposedly they were out one day and they had to call for some advice. And they called his cell phone, and again, I don't know if it's true. I guess we'll find out. His wife answered the phone. And he said, we need to speak to Todd. And she said, hold on. But Todd came and he took the call. Seems pretty routine. But come to find out that Todd got out of the shower to take that call. And it's things like that that I really appreciate, and I just want to be able to say thank you. So I don't know if that's true or not. I guess we'll find out. But it's no greater feeling than being able to tell someone thank you for a job well done. And this is one of those times, so Commissioner Garcia, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Judge Jenkins, Commissioners, thank you. In addition to my wife, it did me on the show in the morning. I didn't appreciate how difficult the jobs are that the constables and sheriffs in this county do until one time they called me on just a routine eviction, and they were worried that the person inside was armed and one of these Republic of Texas types, and that's when it really occurred to me. These guys are often out in the field and they have their training and their expertise, but sometimes they encounter something that's just odd and unusual. And if I can be a resource to make them feel more comfortable and make them feel like they're doing what they need to do, I'm glad to do it. It's still funny to me. I told Constable Williams this. I've never shot a gun in my life, but I regularly tell peace officers how to do their jobs. Only in America can a lawyer do that. But I'm glad to do it for these guys. They are well trained, and most of the time, 9 times out of 10, they would have done without asking what I would have told them to do. So they make my job easy. So I'm glad to do this for them. And I thank you for the resolution. Thank you.
delegation and some people.
Yes, this is my wife that you can confirm, she got me on the show. My parents and everybody from the civil division. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Our final resolution, I will read our final resolution, do it as adoption. And I ask any members of Dallas area interfaith, please come forward, any groups affiliated therewith, and concerned about Medicaid expansion. I'll read this and then I'll get you to introduce yourself. The resolution reads as follows. Whereas Texas has the highest rate of uninsured in the country at 23%. Whereas 672,681 residents comprising 28.1% of Dallas County are uninsured. Whereas the expansion of Medicaid would provide eligibility to 1.5 million more Texans and allow them to seek the medical care they need. Whereas Medicaid already helps over 2.5 million children, Medicaid covers only about 225,000 of their parents. Whereas expanding Medicaid would add 580,498,000 in annual Medicaid funds to Dallas County, generate hundreds of millions of dollars in economic activity. Whereas facilitating and providing parents health coverage is one of the best things we can do to create productive workers and ensure the health and economic stability of Texas families. Whereas the federal government will cover the entire cost of expanding Medicaid for the first 3 years, will pay no less than 90% of the total thereafter. 2014 to 2017, the expansion will bring $24 billion in federal revenue at proposed match rates for statewide expansion. And whereas preventative care will allow newly eligible Medicaid participants to receive primary care rather than emergency room care, saving both money and lives. And whereas covering the uninsured means better premium values for Texans with health insurance by lowering costs for everyone. And whereas Texas hospitals provide over $5 billion a year in uncompensated care, and local county taxes help pay for much of this care. Covering Texans through Medicaid will lower county costs for this care. And whereas Texans federal taxes will be supporting Medicaid expansion in other states, and now therefore be it resolved that Dallas County supports and endorses the full expansion of Medicaid coverage to all Texas U.S. citizens, adults living at or below 138% of the federal poverty level, and calls on all federal, state, local, and healthcare leaders to work collaboratively to craft a Texas plan to improve Medicaid delivery and provide for full expansion, and I so move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Just if I can make a few comments, I'll be abstaining from this today based on the fact that, we have a system right now that is basically called an entitlement program that is not funded and operated like it should be. And what you're seeing here is the expansion of that. And we really don't have the numbers. I've asked for numbers. I haven't been able to get those numbers. And it's certainly my desire, I think this court, before we pass a resolution like this, that we ought to have that conversation in an open court where we can understand what those numbers are going to be. In other words, as this money comes down, is the tax rate going to be lower for Dallas County taxpayers at Parkland? And if so, how much? And what would the net numbers be for Parkland Hospital? As that money comes in, I know that it follows the individual. It doesn't go to an agency, so it follows that individual. I think we're looking at adding, statewide, if you look at the numbers, we're going to reduce that number from 24% uninsured down to 17%. So you're going to basically do a 7% reduction. And in Dallas County, that's about 133,000 lives, I think is what we're looking at. So for that 133,000 lives, where does that money go? In other words, what's the net out to Parkland Hospital? And I haven't seen those numbers yet and haven't been able to have that conversation. So I'm not sure the purpose of this resolution today. I understand that none of the other counties have passed a resolution like this. But as we look at the impact that it may have on Dallas County, we have to take into consideration the sequester at the federal level and also the desire at the state level, and know exactly what we're going to deal with on a county basis. Build America bonds, some of those are part of the sequester, is that correct? So, you know, as those different entities have utilized that money from that, and if sequester goes through, then those entities are going to have to figure out how they deal with that. And I see this as being sort of the same thing. How are we going to deal with, well, in looking at Harris County, I think they're going to receive about $900 million compared to $580 million. Their public hospital will net somewhere around $30 to $40 million addition, is what I've been told. I don't know what that number will be for Parkland. I just think those are the kind of numbers, and seeing what the plan is with those numbers before I can support a resolution like this.
Well, Judge, Commissioner, while I can appreciate that, if you know traditionally what has happened in the state is that there's only been 8 counties. They've always put up all the money in. Okay, so the state, I would expect other counties, and I'm glad to see Dallas County taking some leadership here. Primarily because we've taken leadership in the past in putting up our money so that this
And IGT transfer.
right, in the governmental transfer, so that the state benefits, becomes the beneficiary. And so I understand it. And oftentimes, Parkland has been penalized for what I call its efficiency, even though we put up those dollars, even though we've been able to work in collaboration with some of our other partners in this area. This is the best benefit for our taxpayers and those individuals who are uninsured. While we don't have, or we have not seen those final numbers, I think in the end, and the interface can tell you the difference between Medicaid expansion and the 1115 waivers, and that's kind of a in between our discussions. But this is what we need to do for our citizens.
Well, Commissioner, I understand that, and there's a lot of things, a lot of balls in the air right now. We're talking about a bad tax, we're talking about all kinds of things that I don't know what the bottom line effect of Parkland Hospital is going to be. But when all's said and done, when the feds are out of it, the state's out of it, we still have an obligation to the uninsured here in Dallas County that we're going to be responsible for. So,
But we have that obligation anyway.
That's right.
That's exactly why we're moving forward on this.
Right. Okay, so you tell me, as uncompensated care and disproportionate share goes away, how much of the new funds are going to be replacing those funds?
Well, and the difference between uncompensated and that whole charity care piece, as you know, has been a shell game with regards to what I consider to be our population anyway. There have been other partners who have bought into the fact that they have been collaborating with us. They've become the beneficiary under the guise of supposedly charity care or uncompensated care. We know there's a difference, but we know also that there have been some real shell games that have been played.
But because of that, those funds coming if you look at our tax rate, it provides for 25, basically 25% of the operation cost. So that's serious. So as we look at those government funds that we use to start, which of those are going to be substituted? And see, those are the numbers I don't see.
Well,
And I don't see anybody providing those. You know, as you already know that a lot of the doctors refuse to take Medicaid because of the low reimbursement rates. So now we're fixing to add close to a million plus more people into that system at even lower rates. So
but again, it's our responsibility.
I understand, we're shouldering that responsibility right now.
Exactly.
And I want to do it in a prudent way, not one that, you know, it's very easy to say, okay, we're going to spend $16 million, us as the state, $16 million to pull down $580 million. Well, that sounds, who wouldn't do that? But sometimes when it sounds too good to be true, you better know what's coming back at you, because sometimes those ends come home to roost.
And while I understand, Commissioner, your concerns, the reality is we will continue to have the responsibility, the 25%. What I don't want to see is that increases. And I believe the expansion of Medicaid will help us with that. Access is going to be an issue, like you said, as a dentist. And Medicaid, yes, pays me less, but it pays me. A lot of insurances, I find, you know, I have to put a staffer to do this billing, filing every day, and I'm filing for less than $50, $60, but just multiply by, 50 patients, I'm at loss. So I get what you're saying, Commissioner.
I just want to point on back end.
No, I understand.
Yes.
Well, at the end, I like to think that the big picture, like the judge read in the resolution, is what matters. We will have 1 million more tests insured, and over 500,000 more children insured. And I see those children, and I see those seniors. At the end of the day, a lot of them veterans, a lot of the people that really need it, and they can have the money to save it too. They don't have the money for attention. They don't have, 18-year-old parents, deciding if they pay $1,000 for a root canal, or they leave their kid, 18-year-old, toothless, without a permanent tooth. And I'm not going to go into sodas and all the stuff, not now. But, the reality is, something has to give. And the picture is better than what we have now.
Once if you have full Medicaid expansion, and the feds do pony up the money up front for the 3 years, and then they pull back for whatever reason, because we're borrowing 40 cents of every dollar now. So when that money does get pulled back, it would be very strange not to see that reappear at our doorsteps, because it's going to be passed down from the feds to the state to us, and if we're not cognizant of what happens with that tax rate apartment as this money's coming in, we could end up paying more on our tax rate after you expand that eligibility in the long run than where we're at right now.
But again, I'm back to what I said, Commissioner, and I can appreciate the fiscalness, but it's our responsibility. And if you look at the mission of the hospital district, that's our responsibility.
We're doing it now.
Right.
And the other hospitals are going to come in, and then as that money dries up, does that population shift back to Parkland to where more so than what we have right now? So that's the question.
As a public policy statement too, we want to be in a position to be driving the bus on this and to have all of that information at our hands to be able to make that very fiscally responsible decision as we walk through it. So I say taking that leadership role at this point to say, no, we're at the table and we're watching very, very closely to protect, to make sure that Dallas County citizens, because that is our primary responsibility as taxpayers, have the best that we can offer them and the most fiscally responsible.
I think when they made the decision of not allowing counties to draw down, and everything's contingent upon the state, you just need to be very careful.
Absolutely.
Answer to a couple of those, or some concerns, Commissioner, which are well-founded concerns and well expressed by many people. What I'm asking us to do today, and what I think the court is poised to do today, is join with the Interfaith Alliance, the Dallas Regional Chamber of Commerce, and for that matter, most large urban chambers of commerce throughout the state, the Texas Medical Association, the Texas Hospital Association, and business and faith leaders throughout this state who are advocating for expansion. You point out a very troubling statistic that only 19% of primary caretakers take new Medicaid expansion, or new Medicaid patients. And I have agreed and given speeches across the state that expansion without capacity is inadequate coverage. But flawed as it is, Medicaid is the essential component of public health as far as a safety net for the poor and our elderly in nursing homes. And facilitating coverage for the parents of these kids is the most important thing we can do to create productive workers and ensure health and economic stability for Texas families. Here's how this would work if we don't. Looking at the math of this, the math works this way. Right now, since 1954, we've had a hospital district, and it generates this year $420 million in taxes out of the pockets of every single person in this room. If Medicaid expansion were to go through in its present form, this is the Texas plan, this is what the federal government's offering. I'm advocating that Texas work with the federal government to craft a plan they can sign off on. But if we just accepted the federal plan on face value and all 133,000 citizens were signed up, that would generate in federal monies $580,498,000 a year in federal Medicaid dollars, and that would generate an additional many hundreds of millions of dollars in economic activity. In fact, Billy Hamilton and Ray Perryman's report, this isn't in our resolution, the two very respected economists and leaders in this field expect that the advances in economic churn from that money going through our economy would more than make up for the 10% copay the state might be faced with paying after 2017. But I want to make this point. Conversely, if we fail to participate in Medicaid expansion because we fail to talk and read that Texas plan, the result will be that our tax dollars will leave and go to Washington to pay for everyone else's population that's covered by Medicaid expansion. And your local tax dollars will pay for the people here in Dallas County. You are paying for it now through your Dallas County Hospital District taxes. I'm advocating that we pull down this federal dollars, which could likely result in a significant tax break for the people of Dallas County. But there's no way, and I talked to the CEO of Baylor and CEO of Methodist and the CFO of Methodist and the CFO of Parkland yesterday. We have the most up-to-date numbers. But it's one of those things that we won't know what all the numbers are until it's done. But right now, what we need to do is sit down, the leaders, the local, the healthcare, the state and the federal leaders, and work on a plan. The time to seize the opportunity to work on the plan is now. If we wait to know what the plan will say before we begin to work on the plan, we will never have a plan. So with that, I would move for the adoption of Ms. Medicaid. She's moved on this. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Abstain. And Commissioner Cantrell is abstaining. Would y'all like to please, leaders, introduce your groups, and thank you for coming to be with us today.
Thank you, Judge Jenkins and Commissioners. My name is Gwen Loomis. I'm a leader with Dallas Area Interfaith. And I'm a member of First Unitarian Church at Dallas, which is just one of the member organizations of PAI. Dallas Area Interfaith is taking the lead among our statewide network with a petition drive for the calling for the expansion of Medicaid in Texas, and in working with county commissioners' courts to pass these types of resolutions. And a resolution was passed yesterday in El Paso County. We've introduced one as one we passed in Harris County, and we're working in all the major counties on this issue. Our work in this issue came out of conversations that we had with over 3,000 of our leaders in our member organizations, who told us that health care was a major issue for them. So today, on behalf of Dallas Area Interfaith and our other allies who are with us here today, Bishop Sides and I would like to thank the Commissioners Court for your leadership and wisdom in approving this resolution in support of Medicaid expansion and in support of Texans and Dallas County residents. Expanding Medicaid is in the interest of Dallas County because it will bring $580 million per year back to Dallas County and provide care for those who need it most. It will support over 11,000 jobs in our county and spur economic activity. And I just want to say, if you help someone get healthy, you give them the ability to take care of themselves and their family.
Thank you. The Dallas Catholic Diocese and the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops is also in support of Medicaid expansion because it allows people to have access to much needed preventative care. Everyone here knows that an ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. If you're concerned about diabetes, breast cancer, high blood pressure, and other illnesses, that can be treated with early diagnosis. So we ask you to please support Medicaid expansion. It may not be a perfect plan, but it's better than no plan. Dallas Area Interfaith calls on county commissioners, courts, councils, and our legislature to support this resolution and work with us to pass Medicaid expansion. Thank you very much.
You want to introduce your group today, or I assume there may be two groups?
We also have people here from City Square and from Texas Organizing Project, and this. Anyone else today?
Yeah, can we say something real quick?
You can say something if you like.
Okay, I'm sorry. Our speaker is actually, she'll be back in 1 second. I'm sorry.
See the speaker?
She's right here. Here I am. I'm sorry. We thought we were not allowed to say anything to the end.
Commissioners Court. Hi, my name is Corey Barnes, and I'm glad to be here this morning. Good morning to all my commissioners. My address is 2910 Brooklyn Lane, and I'm a member of the TOPS organization, Hard-Working Citizen of Dallas, who does not have insurance. Governor Perry has publicly announced that he will reject federal funding that will allow me to breathe. That's one of my issues. Will allow for dramatic increase in health coverage for hard-working Texans. However, this is not something that the governor gets to decide alone. We all have something to say. We are here today to thank our county leaders for taking a stand on the issue of the real consequences for health and every member of our county and state. Expanding health care coverage is something that Texas families need now. 1 in 4 Texans does not have health insurance, and half the portion that we have state in the county. The rate is even higher here in Dallas County. Expanding Medicaid will get health insurance to 1.5 million more in Texas. Me, I am one of the 6 million Texans without health insurance who could benefit from the medical expansion. I work hard in the food services where the officers and cannot afford coverage. I had health care a few months ago. My health care is that I have a spot discovered on my breast due to the fact that I do work, but I can't afford health insurance. I have used to a government grant, the Coalition Foundation. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, I had a spill a few months ago, and I went through the Court G Foundation, which they had discovered a spot on my breast. Due to the lack of funds, and I don't have any insurance, that it's not cancer, but they want to keep an eye on it to make sure that, it doesn't go into cancer. I can't follow up on that, because for one of the exams by itself is $300 and something, almost $400. I work, but I can't afford insurance. So this is one of the problems that this country will benefit a person such as myself. So right now, I haven't been back to the doctor with my follow-up on my breast. Counsel runs high in my family, and I definitely need to know. I can't afford it. Passing this resolution to expand Medicaid was the right thing to do, and I thank you. TOP will continue to take this mission directly to Governor Perry in Austin, and we will not stop fighting until health care coverage is expanded here in Texas. This is a matter of life and death, especially for me and many other Texans. And we are proud that our county leaders yourselves have taken a stand to back up the people of Dallas, and we all thank you, and please take it under consideration.
There's one other person who's from top who's asked to speak. Ms. Barnes, got to speak to you on that. Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Tracy Stewart. I'm here on behalf of the resolution extension for Medicaid. Not for me, but for a friend of mine. Her name is Maria. Maria is a diabetic patient. She hasn't had any medication for 2 months. Diabetes is a very serious illness. Without medication, we cause great harm. Her blood sugar now is ranging in the average of 300 and more. That is too high. When your blood sugar is usually high or low, it can cause a crisis for you. You could either go into a diabetic coma, you could also die, you could lose your eyesight, you can lose your limbs, you can lose your liver and kidney function, your organs can be in a very disastrous state. Maria is a working body Texan, but she cannot afford insurance. So Maria, along with the others of 7 million Texans, need you to pass this extension for Medicaid, because all citizens of Texas need to be cared for. Remember the song, Deep in the Heart of Texas? Where's your heart today? Please take this to Governor Perry. Ask him, is he a Texan with a deep heart, and to pass the extension for Medicare for citizens and Texans in this state without insurance? From one Texan heart to all the Texans in the hearts that's sitting before me, please pass the extension, the resolution for Medicare on behalf of the citizens of Texas. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank all of you for coming and for your work. What you do is so critical in getting the word out. This is an issue that's shrouded in politics and also complexity and not least favorite subject math. But it's so important, and what you're doing is so important. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Good job. Our next item is the consent agenda. David.
There's just a commentary related to the bottom of the project. That addendum has been amended I did read purchasing concerns with regards to questions out there to that.
And Judge, I want to be on the record voting against the bid 00265150, which is the commercial, dishwasher. There's only 5 cents, the local company and has no that. Thank you.
Any other comment or discussion on the bid? Any other comments or discussion on the bid? Hearing none, motion is second on the bid.
But no, you gotta do the consent agenda.
Very good.
I'm gonna move the question. Okay. Who moved the water bill? Who moved? Nobody.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Voting no on the bid that I reflected on the record.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, so since she's voting no on that one, it's just so that we can get it, let me second the dishwasher bill. Okay? Right.
Abundance of caution on the dishwasher, since we've got a different second, all those in favor? Okay.
On what?
So that takes us to court orders 10 through 39 and 81. I'd like to pull up 32 for separate discussion and vote. Is there a motion, court orders 10 through 39, pulling 32 for separate vote and 81? Second. Okay. Any discussion on those? I've got one comment on 16, and that is, I'm sorry, I pulled the wrong one for a second. I want to pull the Grand Prairie Sub Courthouse for separate vote. So, friendly, let me ask for an amendment on that motion. That's 10 through 39, and we want to pull 16 for separate vote. Make the motion.
What's that, second? Second. I'll second. Yeah, I'll agree. Okay.
So,
I think she made the motion, she's in agreement with it, I second it now.
all right.
I already got it.
Look at
Then you had his maker.
She made it. Right.
Maker second.
But now,
We're putting 30.
we're going to vote on 16 today, but we want to second.
Pulling 16, we're voting on 32.
Correct. And then the only comment I have on 32 is it's absolutely imperative. We've taken a relatively modest remodel of Foundry Square, and we've added to it to make it a more meaningful remodel. It's going to be absolutely imperative, though, that we get that done. Not the day before, but a full month before the anniversary of President Kennedy's assassination, as people will travel from all over the world to the Kennedy Memorial, and sit in the middle of that. So staff, you'll have assurance that we can get this done on time, correct?
They'll assure us as much as they can, Judge, as much as anybody possibly can, but 32 is not too indifferent from 16, it's like everything else around here, we marginalize projects, and I know you weren't around here, but we cut that project back significantly. When we did the same things happening, we'll talk about 16. Cal, unfortunately, has had a history of kind of doing compression and marginalizing. So, as best we can, staff understands the import, and we're doing the best we can.
There's contingency plans to get her to situate it. If they're not able to finish, they can do certain things that
We believe that's so, Commissioner. We will have a much better idea in the next week or so. We are going to have to take the project through the city's landmark process. That is the great unknown. We have our first meeting with the residents and CBD task force tomorrow, so we'll have a better idea. I'm hoping that within a week we'll have a more detailed schedule of where we're going. We think even, we certainly can't control the weather, we can't control a number of things, but we do believe that we ought to be able to make significant enough improvements such that by, let's say, November 1st, we will have a vast improvement over what we have now. The improvements are very strategic in nature, so it's not going to require the massive excavation and
that was complicated.
exactly. So I think everybody's very pleased, even if we have the worst case scenario.
We'll be keeping you very much on top of that as well as.
We're going to do our darndest.
Thank you very much.
And I think we've been reassured many times, our staff and the contractor, that they're willing to do the best, but like Commissioner Price just mentioned, hey, there's a lot of things that we cannot control, and we hope that this is the best we can.
But we will make sure with the architect and the contractors that the place will be presentable on November 22nd for the support ceremony.
You know, one thing is, as the spring unfolds and the clock begins to move, if we think we're in a situation where it's going to be dicey, we'll come back to you for guidance. You know, there's always the thing, we go ahead and finish the design work and we can hold it.
Right.
And you know, so that if we're not comfortable with what we think it will look like in October, we can wait for November to pass and then start at the beginning of the next year.
Thank you, Mr. Elizabeth.
Waterfront.
Well, we just make one more comment on one of these items. On item number 12, you sit up here at this table, but none of us do any of this work by ourselves. Number 12 includes the appointing of members of our community who work on committees and commissions. I wanted to recognize Tim Sexton, who has just been appointed, I hope you realize this, to the Dallas County Child Welfare Board. And just a recognition that it's people such as Tim Sexton who have been involved working with kids, working in Dallas County for many, many years. And now he is agreeing to come help the rest of us in Dallas County to make it a better place for everybody. And just thank you for your willingness to join all of us in making it a better place. So thank you, Tim.
And on that note, Mr. Sexton, can you please stand up, as well as Tassie Simons, which is also being appointed today on the same item to the Child Welfare. And we appreciate it, widow of former friend and County Commissioner Chris Simons, which I always love and, love as a friend as well. And also Ms. Gloria Carrillo, who just left because he had to be somewhere in 10 minutes. But she's also been reappointed to the Historical Commission from Grand Prairie. And I'd like Commissioner Daniel to say, thank you all for being here. I also see in the audience my good friend Richard Zambrano, National Civil Rights Chair for LULAC for many years. Thank you all for helping, thank you all for serving, and for being here today in this rainy morning, ready to, start working on helping us out. Thank you.
All right, any other discussion on those orders? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor?
Including agenda items. You put all of them together.
I'll second. I've got some questions on 16 specifically, not that we don't need to complete a project that we spent millions of dollars on and need for the courthouse. But the project appears seriously over budget, and I don't have the information to be able to, in good conscience, pass a vote today. So I want to see if I want him to get that information through the email process, see if I can get it today. Let me read where we are. And Mr. Westberg, if you can come up and maybe walk us through some of this. I sent an email yesterday, and it was after hours. I appreciate the response, but asking why this couldn't be, why we couldn't brief this item, because it is a $630,000 expenditure that wasn't budgeted on top of a $230,000 unbudgeted expenditure that we passed on January 29th. While we couldn't brief that this week, have the DA look at the contracts, take it through our normal transparency policy. And the information I got back was that we need to get the electrical wiring done quickly, because it will cost $5,000 to $10,000 more if we don't do that. I then said, so if I understand your answer, you agree that 630 of this doesn't need to be briefed today. And I'd like a more thorough explanation before we spend this much on budgeted money. We replied back, I'd like to have it briefed and passed today. And I asked you to line it out. And what I've got here is the additional 630 that is being requested represents an amount equivalent to about 8.5 of this project's original budget. Please note that these additional funds are generally not needed because of contractor issues. These funds are requested to cover items the county is responsible for. The county does many things well, however, does not have the same degree of experience and institutional memory of regularly constructing governmental facilities as it does thoroughfares. This project is not, I believe, over budget as much as it was underfunded.
There we go. And that was in our briefing, Judge, just for the record.
Right.
You know, when this item was briefed several months ago,
I could.
it was part of the briefing. And pretty much that was it. I think the staff, under the circumstances that this was not part of the original bid, it still has a very good project, and with this $600,000, pretty much we're making up the cut that was done, you know, when this project was bid.
It continues on to say there are some coordination issues and processes that I think the county would do differently if they had a chance to reinitiate the project. And in asking for further explanation of what of that, I'm told that a lot of this is for furniture and fixtures, and it would take 60 days. We need to do that now, so they'll be there in 60 days when this opens. All that sounds logical. I mean, it doesn't, I'm not pleased that we, as we were before I got here with this forensic science institute or over budget. But all that sounds logical. But my concern is I don't have, DA hadn't looked at the contracts, and I don't have the documentation. We have a 2-page brief asking us to do a same-day $630,000 expenditure. Can you put more meat on the bones and line that out? I understand the electrical. That makes sense to me. I don't need you to line that out. But as far as furniture and fixtures and the other items in there, is it impossible for us to follow our transparency policy and do this next week? In other words, like the furniture, could it not get there in 53 days from the time we sign the order, so the DA could look at the contracts and we could thoroughly look over this?
Judge, it's certainly the prerogative of the court to whether they want to take any of these items and approve and brief the same day, or handle in the normal custom we just briefed today and court order next week. That's your prerogative. There are some cost implications, yes, minimal compared to a $7.5 million budget, $5,000. There are timing issues, 1 week, how that might domino down, but we can.
How much?
We can
what
do
do we
whatever
need
the
to
court
pass
says.
today to not cost the $5,000?
I was told that quote that is being held for today. It's already changed. It changed in the week prior to last week.
Obviously chairs and desks don't. The
Well,
electricity doesn't need chairs and
The
desks.
cost was for wiring.
Okay.
Everything else after that is really more of a timing situation.
So how much is the wiring?
The wiring is down here for $91,754.
I can support that today. The rest of it, are you telling me that this project will be delayed if we take this through our normal transparency policy of briefing it 1 week and passing it the next week after we've had a chance to look at it?
We're under no time constraints, Judge, for occupying this building. It's not like the current users of the existing facilities we have are going to be evicted on March 1st or something like that. You know, we set the deadline. The building is largely going to be completed by mid-March with the exception of these items. The contractor will be through and he'll be largely waiting for us to finish our part of the work. So we set the schedule. The schedule can be whatever we like it to be, Judge.
You know, but I find it peculiar. We didn't have the same kind of scrutiny on that Jack Plaza, and I want to get into that.
Well, I wasn't here on the day of the plaza.
Well, you could have pulled it. I'm just saying, my point is, you know, I didn't want to, because, I have a real problem.
I don't want to pull it because the wiring aspects of it, I'm willing to go forward with it.
But don't get into that kind of intricacy, that again, I could have gone through and lined out with it again, back to that Daggum Plaza. I mean, I'm not happy the fact that, we're going to spend $600,000, but I recognize.
I'm not either.
Okay, but we're moving forward. So my point is that, this courthouse is in churn, I mean, it's not unusual, and for those of us who know how, unfortunately, the county historically operates, we thought, unfortunately, I don't want to really say this, but we thought we were going to do it on the cheap.
We know what the results have been on the cheap.
And that's the same thing with the plaza. The reason I supported the plaza, because I was here, one but two of us here, I understand, but we did that on the cheap. We started to cut back. We did the same thing with this courthouse. I remember when we did the one in Garland. We came up and we had to make the same kind of adjustment. Somebody said, well, we're over budget. No, we tried to do it on the cheap.
And they have restrooms standing, they used to have restrooms standing on She-Rock, parking lots that are totally, unparkable. And that, Judge, it's the problem when we do things like this. Now, with all due respect, Judge, staff has done a very good, diligent job on this project. You probably overlook it, but this has been in the agenda several times, and I want to congratulate, Ms. Brown, Mr. Brown, Mr. Martin, Mr. Losberg, because really, they have taken upon themselves to work not only with the contractor, but with all the elected officials that are here today, as well as all the representatives of Grand Prairie, which are excited about this project. And we knew this item was coming forward because it was not part of the original. So at the time, if I understood correctly, we thought that we could get it at a lower price. Well, we're here and we weren't able to do that. So this is the cost. Now, if we really want to take care about the money, we complete a project on time with the money that is required, so it will have the quality that everybody expects. So I know why staff's recommending this, like we do with the one-day briefings. Yeah, it's our job to ask the staff, what we're trying to do when we're briefed, on the same day of voting. In my opinion, this is the right step to go. The more we wait, and anybody that's been in construction or dealing with construction projects knows that there's going to be hiccups. We have hiccups with cement, with rain, with weather already, Judge. We want to delay it a little bit more. It's going to cost more. And my job is to be sure to follow this project, and this is a project that is in District 4 that I've been following, and I thank the staff for briefing me every day about it. And I thank to all the elected officials that have toured this building, that are ready to move and start serving the taxpayers' money. But we don't want to spend any more than what is needed. And that's exactly what we're doing, Judge. With all due respect, the staff has done a good job in briefing these items. I would recommend that we, check on these items a few days before the day of the vote. Thank you, colleagues.
You're correct, this has been, this $630,000 has not been briefed before, but this is the 7th cost overrun briefing on this project. This briefing, I don't think follows our transparency policy, both in that it is a same-day briefing where by any argument only $91,000 of it needs to be, and there's not enough meat on the bones for me to know everything that I'm voting on. So I understand your position, but I will make a motion that we vote on, or that we amend this to cover the $91,000 and any other item, if Mr. Lossberg has one, that needs to be done this week, because I'd like to have the opportunity to do the constitutional job of looking at this and having the district look at it.
It's the beauty of the system and with the diligence of the staff that I've grown to respect and trust in. The case-by-case analysis that we're able to do, and I think that we have been able to, and that it has been substantial by Mr. Lossberg, this particular item, that there is a cost involved if we do delay it even more. Although I do have to admit that we do appreciate having information as much as possible ahead of time so that we can review it with a little less emergency in it.
Question? He calls the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Jeremy's voting no on that?
So Judge, we will get you a list of all of these items and all the purchase agreements.
Yeah, all we did was we'll look through it and post it back. That's the deal.
The purchase agreement.
It's not a legal question.
And it's not just
It's not a legal question. It's not a legal
All right, let's see, that takes us to, briefing. Mr. Martin, please take us through our briefing agenda.
Well, Judge, Commissioner, we have a couple of presentation items. Our first one is Road and Bridge Debris recommends the establishment of the Weekend Community Service Program and development of an agreement between the Public Service Program, CSCP, and the North Texas Volunteer Center. I believe Commissioner Price has a presentation he'd like to
Okay, Judge, Commissioner, Mr. Martin, thank you. This is really a relationship that we had to develop as a result of a prior court in terms of changing the destruction policy. The policy impacted individuals who, as we listened this morning, who were very hardworking individuals who have jobs, but who are also resigned by court order to have to perform community service. Having said that, having jobs, they're not available to work during the weekdays, and therefore most of the destruction of documents was being done on the weekend. This is where we use public service. We average, and these are just some of the projects that we continue to do. Mr. Mize is the director, and of course, what we will show you is that we probably save the county on average about $1.9 million a year, according to budget, and a number of FTEs. These are projects that we'll talk to you about where we are obligated by statute to perform. I guess, let me see, is the volunteer center here as a result of having this engagement? Dr. Noy, are you here? I don't see Dr. Noy's either, from CSCD. They're the ones that's impacted. We're going to have about 800 individuals who are impacted on these weekend projects. We no longer, again, do Saturdays or Sundays because of the recycling. We're in the process, and I'll put purchasing on notice now. Having watched our bid, we're probably going to revisit the whole recycle bid with regards to the dollars that we have been receiving for our recycling. We think we're probably getting fleeced somewhat there, but that's another story. These participants are now going to, with the Volunteer Center of Dallas, and they're going to have to pay to participate in the Volunteer Center of Dallas. It will be borne by the participants. It'll be another cost that they will incur. But we've been assured as much as possible that they're going to be able to meet out their required hours with regards to the public service, with regards to the community service hours. And so in the final analysis, these individuals have provided great value to us. But with the volunteer center, it's just an imperative that we figure out a way for these 800 individuals presently to be able to carry out their mandated community hours. Mr. Mize, is there anything else that you want to? These are the individual, these are some of the projects, as you now know. This is our juvenile department. We now have as a result of the last budget, an individual dedicated to these projects. These projects are ongoing. We have young people in these projects and are in these facilities, and as a result, it's requiring a majority of our time. And so, Steve, you want to come forward and talk about the
Morning, Commissioner. As you dealt with pictures, it's just a general temporary service, but the biggest thing is for these people, we send out about 55 a day, they're every day, 3 a week. And mine figures that was a grade 5, benefits is like 16, 13 an hour. Doing that per year, that's where we came up with 1.9 million. We also send out, not every day, but at least usually once a week, there's about 6 other departments within the county. If those weren't there, then we'd have to have temporary. As you can see, it could be anything. That was before Lee Top was tore down, they had to remove the stuff so they could remove the asbestos, if that makes sense. And you can see from some of the rooms on that, I wouldn't want to do it, but we did it. And they were able to go in and abate. Further down, it shows, I think I've got a graph on it. Scroll down. Just what we run into, you can see, that they did help for about 2 weeks in tornado. That's what, there's where we send folks every day, to the house. That's what we say per week. We add that up over the year, the next line, that shows what the total saves.
$1 million.
The next chart, I think, is, that's their savings experience. There we go, that's over the last year, what we average per month. That's what we had on the weekend workers per month, we see it averages out, what's happening.
And so basically one of the things about this center and just to tell the court that after we pass this order next week that will support these 800 individuals who are again have mandated services. And of course right now they have not been able to carry it out for the last 8 months because we have not had a project sufficient. We are giving them, we plan to begin this program by March the 1st. Dr. Noyes has asked that we be able to give all these probation officers an opportunity to tell them where they're going to report, and we're going to help transition them to the volunteer center. So I want to thank Ms. Jean Wells and all of the volunteer center for this weekend program. So
They threw out what we're going to have to do.
they have a number of agencies that they work with. They have not said exactly what they're going to do. They're going to orient them and bring them in. They have to report just like we do, Commissioner. Whatever projects we have, the individuals working, we have to report back to the court. First of all, they mandate hours and basic work. So we keep that. So we basically told the volunteer center that they're going to have to do it as well. The only, like I said, the only possible hiccup, but we don't think $55 will be an obstruction because these people are designed to work. They're working. They're working. The judge, they are going to have to try to find projects that, again, that only applies to Saturday and Sunday. We had that built in. They're going to have to scramble, but they're willing to at least take on the task.
Looks like a great solution to the problem.
Yeah.
Good job for y'all.
And I want to thank Commissioner Price and obviously Mr. Hines for all they do on this project. Honestly, when we changed, some of the instruction policies, we knew there were going to be some repercussions that were financial. But we also consider, the weekend program. It's a great idea. A lot of these people work during the week. It's the only way they can fulfill, their obligations to the society. And not only that, for our jail population, it's better that we have them working, paying their debt than at jail. And the other thing, as a former council member, I have to tell you, we used to pound on these all the time. You do not have to, no time served. Guys, this is an opportunity for people to pay their debt to society in a productive way.
And partnering with an organization such as the Volunteer Center that has a long history, and working with the whole community seems to me just a win-win situation for everybody.
Well, it is, Commissioners. The challenge is the weekend. And just like we in Dallas County, basically Monday through Friday, except for those people who are in detention who are 24/7, the weekend presents somewhat of a challenge to be able to find, locate the project for that many individuals. But they've agreed to take on the challenge. So.
Thanks, Dr. Murphy.
I'm sure most of the rest of the board knows that as well. I'm also going to try to put some of our part-time people back on the weekends so we can do those projects. I think much of we can't do during the week, those probably the power wash and stuff like that. So, but I have to hold it to a limited amount of numbers. I send so many people out and hoping with the help of the volunteer center that we can work that out.
Yeah, I'm volunteering. I just wanted to point out, I think the line item up there behind workers' minus, but what Steve didn't point out was that when you consider cost savings, when we moved all of that stuff out of the second floor of Crowley, my staff rarely had to do that. When we had public service do it, it not only freed us, it's not only a cost saving in the perspective of the salary or the payment to my staff to do that, but also the basically free labor that we got the public service. Did an excellent job. It took about 2 or 3 months to do that, but it was a big job. So there's actually a cost savings. I just want to make sure everybody understands the cost savings freeing up county employees to do that sort of work. I don't know that always gets factored into the total cost savings.
Thank you.
Also about 80% of that is court order probation, so that is absolutely free. About 20% is JPs for elections.
Thank you. 80% you say, Mr. Bass?
80% is court order, right? So about 20% comes out of the JP courts. That's fines.
Transparency.
Item 2, Health and Human Services, 8, Mosquitoes Erosion Reform Agenda. Item G, Director Thompson will give a presentation on this item, recommends approval of continued ground-based framing initiative utilizing the contract agenda, authorizing exemption from competitive procurement, and authorizing associated costs of ground-based trust framing from the environmental health budget. Director Thompson.
Sure, Commissioner, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to come talk about project that we think will enhance, or believe it will enhance our West Nile virus activity this upcoming year. I want to point out that we have not in our West Nile activity from 2012. We're continuing our West Nile prevention and education. But I wanted to point out some of the things that we discussed before the court as well as in our Public Health Advisory Committee. One of the things we looked at is and there's a lot of misinformation, and I think this chart right here will cover it today. I don't know why that's covering up at the top. But one of the things is that in terms of just actual trapping, Dallas County Health and Human Services has done a great job in trapping. We've now added additional year-round trapping. And I want to point out today do not yield one mosquito with a West Nile virus infection, but we're still doing year-round trapping. But one of the things we also want to point out is Dr. Perkins, who is our health authority, has made visits to Harris County, looked at their West Nile virus program, has done a great job in many crafting our grant. So bringing on BDCI as a contractor will enhance our ability to do not only the 14 cities, but we're taking the initiative to look at any buildings that may be needed for the West Nile virus activity. We're also going to encourage other cities to consider using additional resources. One thing I want to clarify, we have 14 cities we're responsible for, and we're doing that. But for some reason, they tie us to doing all of Dallas County, which is a misinformation because the city of Dallas has their own mosquito control program. Other cities have their own mosquito control program. But be that as it may, if they want to give us that, then we're going to run it the way it should be run. And that's asking each city to increase their staffing or do an outside contract with a vendor similar to what we're doing here with BDCI. Also, as the court received the CDC report, I've heard different perspectives on it. We're already doing some of the things that are already in the CDC report. They haven't said anything different. There's a bill that I couldn't be there today because I'm in Commissioner's Court. We got Bill SB 186 that's going to talk about mosquito control on vacant properties. We've already put that bill forward. And also they talked about some other things. We're already working with regional health departments in 4 counties. I want to commend Tarrant County, Collin County, Dallas County, as well as Denton County. They did a great job in responding to a 1 in 50-year episode. And so we are now collaborating, and there's nothing in the document that talks about a mosquito control program. It talks about having a collaboration between the 4 counties to look at how you can respond to a similar West Nile outbreak in the future. I'm going to let Dr. Perkins kind of go through the...
But before he does that, Mr. Thompson and Dr. Perkins, let me just say, first of all, we followed and stayed with the Dallas County plan. We have not deviated from the plan. We've always had a plan. That's number one. I guess, you know, and I think very gingerly, you're saying it and not saying it, but we're going to have to generate from the Public Health Committee side an opportunity to ask, where were they in their appropriations last year? And given the episodic event, where are they in their appropriation issue?
Well, and we've done that, and I'll get that information to you. One of the things that we're going to generate a letter based on after this conversation today to 2 cities, 2 our largest cities, to ramp up their spending and consider using a contractor or a vendor, just like we're bringing forward to the court. We think the minimum number that we're seeing right now, even what they're projecting, is not enough.
And the Dallas Morning News has an article today about the new policy that was, presented yesterday to the Dallas City Council, and pretty much is what we've been preaching forever, right?
Well, if you recall, it was our recommendation that I sent an email several months ago, based on our discussion, that we recommended the 90 traps. That was our recommendation based on our review, and that's why we're still saying we think there needs to be additional vendor brought in to even wrap that up higher. But 90 was our minimum number, as the court recalled, and they're using our threshold point.
Correct. So, we definitely were in the right direction, the right path. Now, I think, like you're just saying, that we need to be, very strong with all the other partners and colleagues that this is not going to go away. That they need to put more funds and actually do what we've been talking about, education, the larvicide, the traps, the testing. And I am very happy to see, that we have, the educational means, that Dallas County is really working forward and doing this in English and Spanish as well. So we're ready to move forward. So I totally like, what, your side is doing as well, Commissioner Price, because we need to, be strong about guys. We need to all work together and back up.
And I appreciate that we all get along, but let me just say, my problem still is that while they've done the 90 and they met the minimum threshold, they're still not, and I'm not to tell any other elected jurisdiction about their fiduciary responsibility in terms of appropriation. But when you look at what they appropriated, you add 90 tracks. I think what you're saying today with that contractor service, that we need to really ramp it up. Unfortunately, that impact was within one of our larger partner jurisdictions. Not within where we consider our 14 cities was in the larger jurisdiction. And all I'm saying is, that all sounds well and good. Let's see what was the appropriation. Today, our appropriation that we're asking this court is about $350,000. That's what we have on the agenda today.
And I want to mention that's $350,000. I'm working to see if we can get some other grant funding to augment that, but if not, it is the $350,000. I've already discussed that. We're around looking at some other funding. But what I believe, and I want to kind of mention to Mr. Price, one of the things that we will generate after this meeting is a letter to those specific cities that we believe definitely need to wrap up. We want to take on those largest cities. I do have that information on the appropriation, but in those areas, based on the heavy data, we want to focus on those cities where we've seen the greater infection rate in human cases, and that's what we're going to target first. There are some smaller cities that can't handle that, but it's those larger cities that when you talk about the amount of acres, talk about the number of square miles, is that we're going to need them to ramp that up. And we've taken the first step with our perspective. But and I want to commend our mosquito control staff at Dallas County, because I think one of the things, and I don't know whether it's elections or what, at the end of the day, our point is our staff that did everything they were supposed to do. And I think they're really taken aback by some of this inaccurate discussion in the public about, from these quote experts. The issue on the table is they did a great job of responding, and so now we're going to give them more information, which is support and more vendor to enhance that, and so that's what we're focused. But I want to get down to the actual threshold, Dr.
And Zach, let me say, I spoke to Jen McAllister with the federal government yesterday, and she singled out one of your staff for the excellent work that they do. Had Scott Solis. I don't see Scott here today, but I haven't heard criticism from either the federal or the state government. These folks that you're hearing criticism from must be outside of those agencies, because what I'm hearing from the state and the federal government is that the mosquito control staff, epidemiology staff, everybody in Dallas County Health.
Dr. Perkins working with our mosquito control. That if they look at the actual document from the city, it covers 4 counties. And in that document, it complements Dallas County for our tracking, for our surveillance. Anybody that's broadcasting anything else is, as I said, misinformation.
Well, and we shouldn't act as though nothing else is being broadcast, because it is. That undertone is out there. We have to continue to forge the fact that we are getting that kind of validation from those individuals that count, but we still have that undercurrent that we're having.
I don't know what they're talking about. I'm going to let him bring be talking to
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners, citizens of Dallas County. I'd like to go over the Dallas County Mosquito Control Action Threshold or algorithm in regards to mosquito activity. At this current time, today, we're on level 1. Level 1 is normal mosquito activity. We're doing year-round surveillance. And unfortunately, mosquitoes are still active. We have traps that are still collecting mosquitoes. But fortunately for Dallas County, those mosquitoes are negative, have no West virus. Once we are able to detect the first positive sample of mosquitoes with West Nile virus, we go into the level 2 action threshold. Okay? As we continue to conduct our mosquito surveillance, and we see that now we have multiple pools of mosquitoes that are positive West Nile virus, or our first human case, we go to level 3 threshold. If we still see continued mosquito activity increasing, or now we have multiple human cases, that takes us to the 4th level. The 4th level, the 3rd level, the 2nd level, the 1st level has different approaches that we're going to take in regards to activity. In level 1, as I mentioned, normal mosquito activity, negative West Nile virus. We just continue to monitor. Once we get our first positive trap, number 2, as far as mosquitoes, then we'll start taking action, larvicide, finding the sources of where these mosquitoes are breeding, draining standing water, public education, talking about using insect repellent as far as our citizens. Multiple mosquito trap, fresh human case. We're going to increase our rate of adulticide, continual larvicide. The 4th level, we'll go to the maximum rate as far as the ground attack, and if necessary, we have that on the table to go with targeted arrow spraying. So that is our threshold in a nutshell, and this will be considered as we go throughout the season based on what's going on in our community as far as mosquitoes as well as the human cases. Understand that we had our worst 50-year event, and hopefully this year we will not experience anything like what we experienced in 2012. Yes, yes, sir.
You stated moving risk level 2 from 2 to 3, that you had 1 human case. Is that
Right,
correct?
that's the first human case.
Right, that moves you from risk level 2 to 3.
Correct.
Okay, do you have a certain number of individuals affected to move from 3 to 4?
Let me share something with you. Dallas County Health and Human Services, we're responsible for 14 municipalities and unincorporated areas of the county. Now, we can have, Dallas County covers roughly 900 square miles. So depending on where things are occurring, we can have one part of the county has a different threshold compared to another. So in regards to that particular question, it depends on what's going on in a local part of our county as well as across the county.
Well, within the part that we oversee, when you say, I guess, how do you define the outbreak is high, human outbreak is high? You're using one individual to get you from level 2 to level 4.
Right, at one, let's say, for example, we get our first human case,
Right.
and then we go several weeks where we just have that one human case. Just keep in mind, in 2010 and 2011, we had 2 cases. In 2011 and 2010, we had 0. So it depends on where we're going forward, so I'll be considering that as we move forward.
There's no 5 or 10 or 20 to get you to the next level.
No,
It's just the totality.
The urgency of the action is the trigger of the human case.
And one of the differences that we're seeing here, and things that I guess the naysayers leave out, is that we were at a disadvantage last year in terms of reporting. The majority of the cities send their mosquito samples to the state lab. And now we have an opportunity now to view those results via the computer. We did not have that before, but we're now sharing. We're kind of, we've asked each city to allow us to be able to collect that data. In the past, that has not been the case, and I think that's going to help us in being able to get faster information to the court in terms of those cases as well as those positive mosquito pools. One of the things that's even mentioned in that report, and we brought that forward and we asked the state, and I got to bring this part about the birds, because that's definitely a part that.
Well, can I ask you a question before you go to that? Because all the cities that we're not over are going to share, they agree to share that information?
Yes, the cities
We've
that.
also agreed to share our information with them. So-
Right. Well, we consider ourselves the super users in the process to be able to collect the data. Our information is always posted online. The difficulty, right, so they will have our information. The difficulty is that we did not have their information.
Everybody's going to have everybody's.
Everybody's going to have their information. We should be able to access in real time the test results from the state health department in terms of the mosquito samples. But again, they send theirs to the state and it's free. So I'll leave that. The bird discussion is something the state needs to have with CDC that's mentioned in your plan. That's not a Dallas County decision about collecting birds. What we deal with is we take bird sightings that residents give us and we chart that. But in terms of actual collection and from that perspective, that's what the state told us that they will discuss with the CDC. That's not our responsibility. Another misinformation by somebody that don't know. And so, lastly, because I don't want to belabor this presentation, we wanted to give you this threshold. We provided it before, and so we wanted to make sure the court has real-time information. We're going to move forward with our campaign, public information campaign. It's already started. Some people say they started in April. We've never ended ours. We give periodic updates. We'll be meeting with the regional office, I believe, at the end of this month. So we have a follow-up meeting with them. And so we're entertaining any questions that the court may have. Dr. Daniel, we're going to be set to go out and visit one of the areas. And one of the things that's mentioned in this report is to view the habitat that we're seeing the number of mosquitoes coming, the large number of mosquitoes. And we've asked the state to consider looking into that, and we've provided them with a subject matter expert to go look at these areas to see why we're seeing an increased number of mosquitoes in that northeast quadrant area as well as throughout Dallas County.
I look forward to visiting with you and seeing on the ground what it looks like.
We have a booth on that.
So,
Go ahead.
well, with regards to aerial spraying, is that still contained in your plan?
Yeah, it's always been our plan. Our goal with
Nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed. Right, nothing's changed to that level. Right, move to that level. One of the things we want to be able to assess, and that's why I really appreciate Dr. Perkins' leadership on this, is that we will evaluate this weekly. The key is we do not want to lose the ground.
Right.
And if hindsight is 20/20, the information we were getting from those area municipalities that we were not losing the ground, and we found that to be not true. This year, since they've given us the great odds tag, we're going to use the great odds in terms of looking at everyone to make sure that we do not lose the ground attack. One way to prevent losing the ground attack is having a vendor on board to support the municipality in their ground spraying activity. And then, if there is a need, Dr. Perkins will be able to have the data before him to make that decision about we're losing the ground.
And Mr. Thompson, while our mosquito control action thresholds continue to be the same and always been the same, I believe part of what happened was the lack of coordination, the lack of funding. We got too comfortable all around. And that's what we're taking care of today.
Right.
We're putting the funds where we needed to. We're coordinated efforts. We have, this court has approved just a few weeks ago, full-time, person for Dallas County that will be working with all the other elements that the other municipalities. And the last step is tell everybody to come to the plate and do the same thing.
We've been different perspective this year in terms of how we deal with those cities in terms of the information they're given. We're able to guide and be able to look at that information differently.
Well, let me just caution the court. Again, other than those 14 cities, it's about how and if they want to collaborate. As I said earlier, I can't tell another municipality about their appropriation and the fiduciary responsibility. We made a suggestion on one of them that's reasonably defined up the minimal and the 90 trap. Most of us on public health don't think that's sufficient. Okay? But that's going to be incumbent upon that city to make that determination. We really did not get blindsided in terms of the collaboration. We stayed with our plan. Individuals who did not probably weren't as, let me just use the word robust in terms of their appropriation and participation as they probably should have been. And again, I think the reason we continue to try to call this is because, in this whole public health thing, they're at the table because we're working on a collaborative. But at any point that they decide that they don't want to be at the table, we have nothing to say about it. And unfortunately, the mosquitoes don't observe city limits, county boundaries. They don't care about your appropriations. And so we're there trying to collaborate and keep everybody, in the loop. And a lot of them, unfortunately, don't want to get caught up in sometimes what they think is the political dynamics or the perceived political dynamic. So I do want to appreciate staff because we're going to stay focused. We're going to continue to deal with appropriations and what everybody brings to the table and try to keep everybody, most of my committees in the boat.
We'll get that information to you. The letter we'll set out to the two cities that we're going to target to increase their vendor capabilities for responding to the
And by the way, that $350,000 should then cover 5,000, ordinance says 5,000 miles. So, road miles. 5,000 road miles.
And it may go up.
Thank you very much.
Judge, you have 4 speakers on this topic. You want to hold them?
Yeah, no, we'll go ahead and let the speakers speak now. And keep it with us. Same day briefing, we're taking action on the item. So I don't think we read the rules of decorum. Read the rules. I think everybody knows them. Please read the rules of decorum.
All Commissioners Court attendees are hereby advised that this meeting is conducted in accordance with the provision of Dallas County Code, Section 7471. Visitors and registered speakers are to preserve order and decorum at all times. Personal, profane, and slanderous remarks are not appropriate and will not be allowed at any time during this public meeting. Any and all applause is to be kept brief in observance of time constraint. Disruptive visitors or registered speakers may be removed or subject to penalty provided in the state of Texas Penal Code Section 38.30, 42.01, and 42.05. Registered individual speakers are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and the maximum discussion of any one topic is limited to 30 minutes.
Tell you what, man, he puts it in. He puts effort into that. I love that. Good job. Mr. Gene Helwig Richardson, please. Seriously, man, good job.
Thank you, sir.
And Gene, if you wouldn't mind, please state your name and address. And hear the beat, but when you hear the second series of beats, just finish. If you don't stop talking, just finish your thought.
I'll keep talking to this time.
Either way, whatever.
Way too much to say. My name is Dr. Gene Helwig Richardson. I'm an entomologist and confirmed citizen. I live at 903 Hyper Lane here in Dallas. I'd like to spend a lot of time commending the county on what they do. Zach and the commissioners are concerned, involved, and transparent. Commissioner Gibbons on allowing us to have a panel discussion, a serious panel discussion of all the experts that we have. And I wish you could have all been there. I wish everyone in this room could have been there. We're talking about spraying pesticides on the citizens of Dallas. This is serious business, really serious business. We have a generation at risk. Developmental disabilities are up 17%, ADHD 3%, autism up 78%, childhood cancers 25% increase. Wow. Diabetes is up 53% in children. Obesity, an epidemic 171% in our children. What does that have to do with mosquito control? It has to do with pesticides. All of those diseases are aggravated and activated by chemicals. And those chemicals include the one that we've been assured is safe. Pyrethroids. Dr. Lakey says it's perfectly safe. He said it on television. Must be so. No, it's not. Pyrethroids are endocrine disruptors. Endocrine disruptors. 3 parts per billion. 3 parts per billion can interfere with endocrine development in our children. In our children, the most vulnerable people. All of you adults in this room, all of you know a child. And all of you know children that are at that vulnerable stage.
I have 14 grandchildren living here in the Metroplex that because of an emergency were sprayed with an endocrine disruptor. It may shave a few points off their IQ, causing them to miss a college opportunity. I have one of them who is ADHD, and I've got to wonder why. He's exposed to pesticides. The NRDC, the Natural Resources Defense Council, has comments on the on the pyrethroid cumulative risk assessment. This is going on. I'm in the industry. I know what's going on. The chemical industry is fighting tooth and nail to keep these data from being implemented. I have this information available. This is not something I made up. I have tons of references. If you want to see them, as I demand protection. I'm of that vulnerable demographic. I'm an old white guy, and I'm the kind who gets West Nile virus. But if I have to take West Nile virus on to save my grandchildren, I'll do that. I'll do that. Don't spray me again. Thank you.
Our next, thank you. The next speaker is Jennifer. Jennifer, if you just state your name.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Logan, and I live at 3905 Beaver, and I'm a concerned citizen for safe and mosquito control. I know that everyone here today on each side of the podium is equally committed to protecting public health, something that can be difficult when there's media clamor for reflexive reaction to a serious disease that requires a measured response. In this sort of climate, we've heard repeated calls for earlier spraying. We've seen the aerial spray being moved up. And even though the science does not support spraying as a first level of defense, the climate is further complicated by undue influence of the multi-billion-dollar chemical industry that financially benefits from expensive decisions to spray. We have to raise questions about the objectivity of the CDC's report when it has agreed to allow for a for-profit mosquito control company to pay to fly its representatives to an industry-funded regional mosquito control meeting this past week that advised municipalities on mosquito control and barred citizen participation. This is why it's critical we reach out to leading experts in their fields who are not beholden to industry influence. We deeply appreciate that Judge Jenkins showed his commitment to science by allowing our organization to facilitate an expert panel on the efficacy and health effects of aerial spraying earlier this month. Since most members of this court were not in attendance at this panel, I'm going to cover some brief points. Two renowned experts in entomology and public health participated in this panel, along with several local scientists and physicians. Cornell University Professor Dr. David Pimentel is a leading expert on entomology. He's authored over 700 peer-reviewed articles. In his presentation, Pimentel noted that mosquito control should focus primarily on larval control, which will also curtail adult mosquitoes. But he notes that most municipalities focus on less effective spraying of adult mosquitoes, which has no effect on the larva and poses significant public health risks. But most troubling is the data presented by Dr. David Bellinger of Harvard School of Public Health. He's also with Boston Children's Hospital. This is a leading expert who addressed the risks of pesticide exposure in children. Bellinger described the development of a child's nervous system as, quote, exquisitely choreographed. Specific things need to happen in a certain order at certain times for normal development. And any exposure or an event that interferes with this choreography holds potential of producing irreversible changes. As a colleague of mine has said, according to Bellinger, a child only gets one chance to develop a brain. This leading child health expert also cited studies linking childhood pesticide exposure to all the things that Dr. Jean Helmick Richardson mentioned. When considering associations between pesticide exposure and lower IQ, Bellinger added, quote, the cumulative public health impact is enormous in terms of the loss of intellectual resources to society. These neurotoxic effects also often initially present in subclinical ways that are not attributed to the exposure. Since spraying poses the most health risk and is the least effective way to control mosquitoes, whereas larval control is the most effective way to control mosquitoes and poses negligible human health risk and can even be aerial sprayed, adulticiding should be the last and not first resort, especially given the threat of insect resistance, which Rutgers University entomologists have compared to antibiotic resistance. Once you have insect resistance, there is no undoing that. We are not asking you to take spraying off your arsenal. We are asking you to be good stewards of the tools that you have and use them carefully. We are asking you to listen to the unbiased experts. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Our next speaker is Mr. Brandon Pollard.
While they're coming, maybe I was just choppy liver, but I've been sitting in on these 3 and 4 hour meetings. I thought somebody else was outside.
Good morning. My name is Brandon Pollard. I'm the head beekeeper with the Texas Honeybee Guild. And Commissioner Price, it sounds like we need to get you to preach a sermon for the bees that we've lost over this past year. We're sadly experiencing a lot of the backlash from getting a lot of the adult deciding that we did in 2012 for the West Nile. And frankly, I'm a little disappointed to see the aerial mentioned in risk level 3 and not risk level 4 as it was presented at the PIAC meeting that we were attending a few weeks ago.
Same document.
Yeah.
It's always been
Yeah, it's all
I don't change.
Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah.
And so we are certainly seeking the opportunity to educate because we are the boots on the ground. And as a beekeeper, it's in my self-interest for me and our business to make sure that we're educating our public, because we can do all the adulticide that you want, but the sad thing is that the mosquitoes have a fortnight birthright. So you can do all the adulticide you want, but 2 weeks later we have the same problem all over again. So we're really encouraging the county to allocate funds to Zachary and the educational aspect of the county to make sure that some funds are allocated for education, because there is absolutely no way that we're going to get through all this without the folks that actually had contracted the West Nile. 70% of them said that they weren't doing anything to help themselves with the mosquito issue. I think that we really need to educate the public. The Texas Honeybee Guild is actively involved. We're actually on the board of the Dallas Friends of the Farmers Market. And it's very important and vested interest with all the chefs. And the Texas Chefs Association gave a presentation to educate them about the mosquito issues that we're going to have. And if we're all educated, then we can all figure out ways of working together on this issue. I know the Audubon Society, where the Trinity River Audubon, we actually have colonies of bees flying there, and they've actually done a lot of bird counting, so I think that there's an interesting opportunity there where the county could work with the people that are counting birds. And for us, we're also working with the Xerces Society, which is in bird conservation, and they have a dragonfly short course that they're going around the country educating people on the importance of dragonflies, because not only do they predate on the larvae, they also predate on the adult mosquitoes. These are all things that would be compromised through the adulticiding and synthetic pyrethroids. We're also working with bat conservation as well, because bats have been known to predate on the adult mosquitoes. We're very excited about the SBA 186 because we think that that's going to be a great help in mitigating some of these mosquito issues that we're having, and the access to the properties that people aren't accessing with some sort of larvicide. We're also very excited about the 90 more traps, because that is going to localize the data, and it's not going to go to the state that has the contract with the chemical company. So we're very, very fortunate as educators to have the Earth Day Dallas events, the Oak Cliff Earth Day events. We have many events that we're doing throughout the year that not only are we going to be trying to sell a little bit of honey so we can make a living, but we're also going to be having those dumps and those bits sitting right next to that honey jar, so we can educate people on the importance of them taking responsibility for their own watering reception.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our last speaker today is Ms. Marie Today.
My name is Marie Today, and I own a small organic farm at 4708 Pioneer Road in Gulf Springs. I want to take this opportunity to bring some of the new and previously absent commissioners up to date on a few key points that were brought up at previous meetings in their absence. So if you forgive the redundancy for those of you who were in there. We're very glad for the Health Commissioner's openness and willingness to let professional constituents help guide them through this precarious process. We all live here too. We share the same air, water, and the effects of what is done to both. And on that topic, our water here in Dallas County is primarily the Trinity River Basin. Anything sprayed in the air hits it. One of the areas I personally have not yet been made to feel comfortable about is the ingredients of what might be used if indeed your most heroic efforts to prevent severe outbreaks of the Culex mosquito fails, the variety which is responsible for transmitting the virus that isn't active at this time of the year, which is fortunately why we're not finding them. We were not given the 14-page actual plan at the quarterly meeting, only the PowerPoint version, very vague, especially when it came to the actual parameters used for adulticiding and what would be used. I realize this is still a process unfolding, and that is large in part why we are here today, to continue to be a part of that process in order to help assure all parties involved that our county will do the best thing for the overall health and quality of life for it as a whole. At a recent farmers conference in Austin, a particularly stark example was given regarding our food chain. What happens if you kill all the mosquitoes? The farmer's nemesis, of course. This environmentalist went down the list, starting with the loss of several varieties of birds and ending with a sterile soil situation due to the chain reaction that occurs over time when just one species is affected. That's what we're talking about happening in our water. If our water is further contaminated with PBOs and pyrethroids, any more than it already is documented to be, it kills off the beneficial life in the soil that feeds the plants, that feed us. The Clean Water Act's goals have been recently ramped up again, and North Texas Council of Government has an ambitious goal to make the Trinity fishable and swimmable again. How is this possible if we continue to introduce heavy loads of pesticide pollutants into our stormwater by municipalities and industry? Less than 10 parts per billion of the pesticide used to kill an adult mosquito sounds harmless, but this is the same amount that will kill small aquatic invertebrates that fish feed on, and certainly it is toxic to smaller life, such as that which needs to be present in our soils to grow our food properly. The EPA, recognizing the accelerated and accumulated effects on aquatic life, has stepped up new labeling standards stating not to allow pesticides to enter or run off into storm drains, drainage ditches, gutters, or surface waters.
And give it to a guard, you can look at it right away. An envelope will give more confidence to an inmate in the right ingredients, and that's simple first grade logic. Now, please explain to me why that's happened and why it cannot be fixed immediately. It might look simple on the outside, but inside the jail, it will give a lot of confidence to the inmates, less friction between the inmate and the guards. The second thing I need to address is the South Tower intake. Inmates are staying up for 3 days with no blankets, no mats, no soap, okay? Now, it happens very, very often when a person gets rolled for like following director. They go to the intake and they stay there and sleep on the concrete for up to 3 days, no showers. Yes, Mr. Price, Mr. Price, I know.
Just go on.
Okay, I experienced it, sir, and the guards have been telling me this. Okay, now, I promise inmates I'll mention to you, but Mr. Price, I know you're involved in this, but sir, you're not doing something right. Okay? I'm telling you one thing. One other thing has to do with the cold room where the pods are at. Before, there were no blankets in there, but when the state came in, or the feds, now they have blankets and mats for the cold room where the pods are at right now in the South Tower. One other thing about the county jail are that a big problem with the medical pods. A lot of seizures are happening. And I see inmates correcting the seizures. Can I finish, please?
You can finish your thoughts, sir.
Okay. The guards are not being trained to correct seizures. You have guards looking at the inmates trying to help the inmate with seizures before the medics come. Because why I say this is the guards are inside the pods, and they're the first line of defense, and they do not have any training. So whatever Mr. Price is saying, sir, go look at it. I can show you. Okay? I like what you're saying. I know it's true, and it's unbelievable what Mr. Price is doing right now. I just came out last week, and especially the 3 days, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I can't allow that to be said. We are in meetings every week. For the last 6 years, I get a report with regards to all medical assessment protocols which is in the South Tower every week. We are following all the protocols from the Texas Commission on Jail Standards. They review all of the counts. If inmates don't feel comfortable that their particular grievance is getting through, then they can bypass and go straight to the Texas Commission on Jail Standards. They take and audit us against what they find locally. And so the reason I must address this is because the Texas Commission on Jail and Standards audits us on everything from kites to medical assessment to the training of the guards. The guards are trained in classes. It's documented. Oh, Sheriff, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take. Come on, I didn't see you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now we're not saying something. Okay.
Thank you. On the Commission of Grievances, they can also go to IA. They can go directly to IA. They don't even have to go through an officer. They can make arrangements with IA to go. Even now, as he's off, he can go to IA and take care of that. The other thing is we do have film. There is cameras there. If there's such a thing as sleeping on the floors, which is almost impossible for me to believe, but we can look at it again. But there is film, and we can see from that film. Officers do not look at the seizure area. There's nurses there. There's a map area where nothing but nurses. There is an officer there to take care of security, but it's nurses that are there 24 hours. So they're looking at that area 24 hours, and they're in that spot. I'm not sure what he's discussing. We'll be glad to look at it. But as the commissioner said, we can't let that stand because there is film that people can view if there's a situation like that. And nurses are there 24 hours, the map area. He's talking about the South Tower. We have a map area, which is medical assessment program, and there's nurses there 24/7. So we'll be glad to look at anything that comes up like that. But as he mentioned, we can't let that stand because we do have measures in place that will address any of that. And we will be glad to talk to him and go directly to IA without even coming to us, or go directly to the jail commission without even going to us. That seems to be an issue.
Thank you, Sheriff.
All right, that concludes our registered speakers. The court's in a recess for our closed session, so I'll direct our chapter back.